at Sheringham Lighthouse with my friend Ian, and we're going to be talking about the lighthouse history today.
Yeah, now we're going to go on a tour through the lighthouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been through before, so you know all about it and you can take us through.
Yes.
Great stuff. Okay,
let's go. So this is about the history. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah, but it was built in 1912. So this was a time when your grandparents were probably about your age.
Yeah.
So about 5 generations back. And it was built because at that time there was lots of ships coming in and out of the strait here, coming into Victoria and into Seattle. But there'd been an awful lot of shipwrecks. And in 1906, just a few years before the lighthouse was built, in 1906 there was a very bad shipwreck. It was a boat called, you can see it here, the SS Valencia.
Yeah.
And that was a steamship. It was coming from San Francisco up to Victoria, and it missed the turn into the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and it went steaming up onto the rocks up at Pachina Point.
Wow.
And there was 137 people that died in that shipwreck. So because it was so bad, the governments at the time, the government of Canada and the American government on the other side, they both said, look, we have to do something to protect the shipping better than it is now. Yeah. So they did a few things, but one of the things that they did was they ordered that 12 new lighthouses be built around the area. And so Sheringham Point was one of the first of those lighthouses to be built. So that's how it came to be. And then, as I said, it started up. It was finished being built and lit up for the first time in 1912. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then it operated all the way through until 1989, which was 30 years ago, when it was destaffed, and so that there's then no more staff on site, and it was kind of abandoned at that time.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So the lighthouse has 6 sides, so it's hexagonal. A lot of lighthouses are. The ones in this design are hexagonal, and they were made like this. This is a pretty standard design of lighthouse for the early 1900s.
Maybe you should go inside and take a look.
Sure, okay.
Okay, let's go. Okay, let's go. Here we are inside the lighthouse at the base. Also, it is very echoey in here.
Echo! Oh! Yeah, it's neat in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you talk, all of your voices echo. It's neat. I love it in here. Yeah, we just finished the restoration of the lighthouse in January of this year, so it's pretty new. And what we did on the inside here is we chipped away all of the old concrete that was crumbling and was falling down. So we took all of that old concrete out and we concreted those patches that were bad, and then we painted the entire thing all over with several coats of new paint. Okay?
Yeah.
took us about 4 months to do all of that work. It was a big job.
What was the color before?
It was always white.
Huh.
Yeah. So we kept all the same colors. The walls were white, and the metal and the door and things like that. They've always been grey, like this.
Yeah.
And then the lantern up on top is red. Okay. And those are the signature colors of the Coast Guard. All of the Coast Guard lighthouses, they all have the same colors. So you can tell that's the
Yeah. Okay, so we should head up now. So these are really 4 steep stairs to head up there, and just go.
Want to head up? Okay.
Here we're at the top of the lighthouse. Right here is where the light used to be.
Yeah, so as you said, Jack, this is where the light used to be, up on top of this housing here. And originally, the light was called a Fresnel lens. It's a French name named after its inventor, Mr. Fresnel. It was called a Fresnel lens, and it was made up of hundreds of little prisms. And those prisms focused the light. Originally, the light was lit with whale oil, and after that, it was a diesel oil lamp, and then eventually became an electric lamp. Okay, but that little lamp then gets magnified by these prisms and focused into a beam that shoots out about 25 kilometers across the water, so it can be seen from a long distance. Okay. So that's how it worked. It was up on top of the housing here, but it was very heavy. And at that time, there was no power. When the lighthouse was first built, there was no power in here. And so the way they had to make the beam go around in a circle so that everybody could see it, the whole mechanism had to turn around. So the way that they did that with no power is they did it with a clockwork mechanism. Pulleys and gears and things like that were on here. And so there would be a cable wrapped around here. And you saw when we came up through the stairs, there was some holes in the landing. And so what would happen is this cable would go out here, down through the hatch, and those cable would go all the way down through those holes in the landing, all the way to the bottom of the lighthouse. And at the bottom of that cable was a 160 kilogram weight.
Wow.
How much do you weigh?
Like 95?
95?
Yep.
So it's like way heavier than you are.
Yeah.
And so it was a big, heavy weight. And so the lightkeepers used to winch that heavy weight all the way back up to the top, and then let it go. And as it fell down by gravity, it took about 3 hours to get to the bottom of the lighthouse. Okay, and as it went down, it pulled the cable, and that cable turned the light. So that's how they did it. That's how they made the light turn around. And so every 3 hours, when the light was lit, every 3 hours, the light keepers had to come back out here, winch the weight back up to the top and let it go again. And 3 hours later, come back again and do it. So one of the things about light keepers is they never got any sleep. Because they were always out here winching the weight back up to make the light turn around. Now,
So,
go ahead.
why does it say that notice there might be mercury?
Yes, this used to contain a bed like of mercury, and you know what mercury is?
Yeah.
It's a liquid metal. And so this housing here will sit on that bed of mercury so that it could turn easily. Right? And so because there was no friction with the mercury, it was like sitting in liquid, and so the light could turn more easily with the copper mechanism. That's why the mercury was here. Now you also know mercury is very poisonous, that's right. At that time, way back in the early 1900s, they didn't know how dangerous it was. And so it was here, and the lightkeepers were working with the mercury all the time. But they didn't know that it was dangerous, and a lot of them were poisoned by the mercury that they were working with. So it was a very tough life being a lightkeeper way back in the early part of the century.
So here's the vents. They're here to keep cool on the summers and warm on the winters. Turn like this. And these are actually the original color. It's all brass. And yeah.
Yep, when we did the restoration, they were all painted.
Yeah.
They'd been painted white over many years, and with all of the layers of paint on them, they'd been painted shut. So none of them worked. So we took all the paint off, we stripped all the paint off, and found that they were brass underneath. So we've left them as brass so that they turn, and we can use them again now to regulate the temperature in here. Because here we are in the middle of the summer, and boy, it's hot in here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, the light used to be right on there. Now, this wasn't the original light.
Yeah.
This housing here is for the electric light. It was put in the late 1960s when the whole thing was electrified. But before that, it had a different kind of mount for the big Fresnel lens. You see all those windows behind you?
Yeah.
Every one of those windows was broken, and we had to replace all. There's 36 windows, and we had to replace all 36 of them. And you can see, because they're all curved windows, we had to get them all specially made. So a special manufacturer, we took one of the old ones as a template and had 36 new windows made from that one template. And of course, when we did all of this work up here, we had to have the entire lantern room here had scaffolding all the way around it, and then it had white sort of plastic sheathing, so it was like shrink wrapped, the entire thing, so we could work on the inside all the way through the winter without it being bothered by the weather. And especially when you take out all of these windows, you can imagine the wind just sort of howls through, right? So we couldn't work up here if we didn't have the scaffolding.
So these are the electronics for the light. Do they still work?
These are electronics. This one here.
Yeah.
This is the electronics for the Sheringham Point weather station.
Oh.
We'll go have a look at that outside. There's a weather station outside here.
Okay.
This is. So this is the electronics and the broadcast stuff. So what the weather station does is record temperature, rainfall, humidity, all of the temperature, the wind speed, and then it collects it through the electronics here and sends it off to Environment Canada, and then Environment Canada puts the weather forecast from Sheringham Point on the TV. So when you go to your TV or the radio and it says, the weather today at Sheringham Point is, that's right from here.
The wind's probably really strong today.
Well, you can hear it, can't you, outside? Yeah, it's noisy. Well, do you want to go outside and have a look?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoa, it's high up here.
Yeah. So over there,
Yeah.
that's Gordon's Beach. You can see over on the other point there, on the far side, and then that goes into Victoria in that way. And of course, across the way there is the Olympic Peninsula. That's the mountains there on the Olympic Peninsula in the US.
Yeah.
Let's just go around. We'll have a look at the light and the weather station. Okay.
This light?
Yeah.
Oh.
Blown you away.
So good. So this light is still a functioning light for ships. So it basically just replaced the lights what's in there, just a little bit more fancier.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it comes on at nighttime automatically, and it flashes about every 30 seconds or so.
Yeah.
So the ships going by can tell that Sheringham Point is right here, and so they know where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Holy cow!
So we're back inside now. It's super windy out there. You probably couldn't hear a thing. But okay, should we get back down to the engine room?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So this building here is a concrete made out of concrete blocks, and this was built later. It was built in the late 1960s, I think. And before then, this was a wood frame building, and it was getting too old and it was falling down, so they had to replace it. In here were the engines and the foghorn that used to be here. That was all in this building here, and the generators, and that's what they used it for. So they needed a new building, and they had this old wooden building falling down. So what they did is they built this new building entirely inside the old one, and then they knocked the old one down around it.
So this is the engine?
Yes, it is. We call this the engine room for obvious reasons, because this is where the engine is. So they used to generate the power from engines. They used to have actually two engines in here. This is one of the later engines. They had many engines over time, because they started putting the engines in all back in the late teens, early 20s. So the engines have been here for a long time, so they've had many different engines over time. This is the latest one.
Does it work?
It probably does work, but we haven't fired it up for quite a few years now. So it probably needs a little bit of tinkering with to make it work again. But it was functional not too long ago, and so it should still work. But the problem, of course, is you don't really want to be running an engine for too long inside a building. Right? And so that's why we have these vents and things here to take the exhaust outside. And then all of this equipment on the walls behind you here. This is all electronics equipment and switching that transferred the power from here to the Lighthouse operations. Okay, so that's what this was.
So in here is all the computer equipment for what?
This is this here is equipment that helps monitor killer whales and humpback whales and the sounds that they make. The whales that go by off the point here. There's it's a program that's run by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Government of Canada, and they're monitoring the whales to know how many of them there are out here and where they are, who they are, where they go, and things like that. So out in the water, just off the point here, there's a hydrophone. The hydrophone is an underwater microphone that picks up the sounds of the whales, and then will bring the whale sound, the feed, back into here through the computer, and then is broadcast out to the fisheries office in Vancouver, and they can monitor the sounds of the whales in real time. They can tell exactly who's here, because each pod of killer whales has a very unique dialect. So when they hear the sound of the killer whales, they can not only tell that there's whales here, but they can also tell who it is.
I heard that you're going to make a live one for everybody else in here if they're coming down.
If we can. We put Wi-Fi in here. It's not activated yet. So once the Wi-Fi is activated, then we hope to be able to get this feed and put it directly onto our website, so that everybody then will be able to hear the sounds of the whales.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite little spots at the whole site, because you get such a great view of the lighthouse from here. You can see everything, but you get this really neat view of the kelp beds down here, especially when the tide's low. You can see when the sun is right, you can see everything that's going on down there. Yeah. We get seals in here and sea lions. I've seen otters down here, and I've seen whales, but we've had some people who've seen the killer whales come right in here, right in this place. So that's our tour of the lighthouse, Jack, and I want to thank you for taking us around and being so inquisitive and asking so many good questions.